Hello, my name is Armari Bryant, and today I'll be talking about symbolic convergence theory. I chose this theory because I thought it was very interesting. I thought that it was a very cool way to explain the different thing, like the different ways that we recollect memories with our family, friends, and peers, and that help us grow stronger bonds together. So I never knew there was a theory for this, but I thought it was really cool when I figured this out. So here it is. So today we'll be talking about how it was developed by Ernest Borman, dramatizing messages, fantasy chain and reactions, fantasy theme, fantasy type, symbolic convergence, rhetorical vision slash community, and fantasy theme analysis. Dramatizing messages. So the book describes it as imaginative language by a group member describing past, future, or outside events, creative interpretations of there and then. So a group member must see this, set the scene of the memory or paint a picture in order for the rest of the group to recall the dramatizing message. So this basically is just talking about how someone in your group, your family, your friends, they basically bring up a memory that you guys all share together, but they have to kind of set the stage in order for you to remember it. So this is what that process is called. So whether or not the other group members connect with this imagery, dramatizing messages are creative interpretations of the there and then. So this is an interpretive piece of theory. Basically, the whether or not, like, say if my friend brings up something and I remember but I don't necessarily chime in, don't necessarily give it the energy that would help bring it more alive, it's still creative. So fantasy. So basically, a fantasy is a creative and imagery shared interpretation of events that fulfills a group's psychological or rhetorical needs. The bond that brings everyone together out of the now and into the memory or the future. So this basically is that memory. This is what the dramatizing message, this is the meat of it. This is basically what we're remembering. It's the memory. So this is like kind of what how Borman and his colleagues explain it. Fantasy chain reactions. So this basically is when someone brings up that fantasy or that dramatizing message, and you guys all, like you and your friends or family, you guys all kind of chime in like, oh yeah, I remember that. Do you remember when this happened? Oh yeah, and then this happened. And when everyone chimes in to that storytelling, it kind of plays a part in all of it. So it kind of like just brings the whole thing to life, but it's a group effort to do this. So this kind of like this kind of the fantasy chain reactions. This kind of is what brings together that dramatizing message and bring alive that fantasy. So it is defined as a symbolic exposure of lively agreement within a group in response to a member's dramatizing message. Dramatizing messages that bring out the excitement in groups that cause them to join in the storytelling. So, like I said, when someone's bringing up something, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's like it's exciting for the whole group, and it makes everyone want to join in on the storytelling. Fantasy theme. So the content of the fantasy that has chained out within a group's SCT's basic unit of analysis. So this is basically what that memory is about, the content of it. So the content that starts the fantasy chain shows a member's meanings, emotion, motives, and actions. So regardless if it's a bad memory, a good memory, it just basically shows where everyone's head is at about that memory. So someone might bring up, like, a bad memory and everyone's just like, oh yeah, that was horrible. It kind of just shows how all of us bond on that memory, and it shows how all of us feel, our emotions. It kind of just brings out everything that the whole group kind of bonds over with that memory. So the symbolic cue is an agreed upon trigger that sets off group members to respond as they did when they first shared the fantasy. So this can be a gesture, a word, it could be a phrase, anything that can basically trigger that dramatizing message and bringing back that fantasy, that takes everyone back to when they remember, or this could be futuristic as well. So it can be like just me bringing up, oh, we're going to do our nails this weekend. We're also going to go to the mall. Oh, yeah. And we said that we're going to do this as well. And everyone chimes in like, oh yeah, so are we going to also make more plans? Like we're basically getting taken from the now to the either then or the future. Fantasy type. So a cluster of related fantasy themes, greater abstracts incorporating several concrete fantasy themes that exist when shared meaning is taken for granted. So the overall takeaway from the fantasy theme. So for example, if me and my colleagues or even my staff members, if we're talking about when we bring up a person's name at work that never really does their job, so we all have to pick up that slack all the time, our fantasy type, the kind of the thing that we take away from that is, oh, we just don't like working with them because we have to work twice as hard picking up our load and their load, and we kind of bond over that fantasy theme as well. So this is kind of the fantasy type. It's basically what is the assumption or the takeaway from the whole entire experience for everyone in the group. Symbolic convergence. Two or more private symbol worlds incline toward each other, come more closely together, even overlap. Group consciousness, cohesiveness. This brings the group, this basically is talking about how the convergence of the group, the fantasy or the dramatizing message, how it makes the bond stronger. But Borman also talks about how this is not technically a sufficient cause of cohesiveness, but it can make the group's bond stronger as well. So, but it can be either way, either or. Rhetorical vision / community. So when Borman and his colleagues were studying this, they were studying small groups, just seeing like kind of how this theory works within them. But they didn't want to just stop there. They wanted to see what were the common realities that different communities shared. What was that common reality that kind of brought everyone together? So rhetorical vision is a composite drama that catches up large groups of people into a common symbolic reality. Rhetoric community is the large group of people that share a common reality. So basically, the rhetorical vision is what the rhetorical community, like, they're sharing. It's their fantasy that they share. This can be like the book talks about being bulimic or anemic. It talks about anorexia. It talks about multiple things that people share, and that they don't necessarily have the exact same memory, but they had like similar events that brought them to share the same common reality. So this is pretty much what communities go through. People like parades or anything like that. I have a picture of a protest right here because these people share a common reality. They may have different background knowledge or different memories on this specific thing, but it all brought them to the same common reality. So Borman wanted, when critics would look for this in different communities, he had a criteria list. So, fantasy theme analysis, a type of rhetorical criticism used to detect fantasy themes and rhetorical visions, the interpretive methodology of SCT. So, this is the criteria that you basically will look for within a dramatizing message, but you could also look for within a rhetorical vision as well within a rhetorical community. So, characters. Are there heroes to root for or and villains to despise? So, like I said, with the protest, who are they for? Who are they against? What happens? Like everything. Plot lines: do characters act in a way consistent with the rhetorical vision? So that goes as well with the characters and with using that same example of the protest. Um, Scene: how do descriptions of time and place increase the drama's impact? And sanctioning agent: who or what legitimates the rhetorical vision? So that's all I have for today. I hope that I explained that as effectively as I could. Thank you for listening.